Hello, welcome to Ephemera Files by Tommy, and in this episode of Making Mildred's Roses, we are going to work a little bit on stencils and stamps and sprays. And a lot of times those are the things that I do to kind of manipulate and pretty up blank white pages. But sometimes I do them on other pages as well, just to add a little oomph or a little extra needed texture or different things like that. So I am going to show you how I like to do those things. So let's move these to the side. And here are the stencils that I have chosen to work with in this journal. I have 4 different sizes of dots and circles, and I have a rose stencil and a damask stencil. I also have some stamps, and we will work with them later. So first, I have this page right here. And it was a very long page, but I didn't want to really lose any of it because I really liked it. So I folded it at 4.5 and at 4.5, and I had this 3-inch strip left that I'm going to make into a pocket, but that left me with all this white space here. And so I am going to take care of that using multiple layers of these dots. So I have my backing paper here. Move those out of the way so they don't accidentally get stomped on, I think. Not stomped on, but stamped on, stenciled on. There we go. And so I'm going to start with this stencil first. And I have chosen these 3 pinks, reds, that I have already selected to use in this journal. And I have Candied Apple, Aged Mahogany, Worn Lipstick, and Victorian Velvet. And I am going to start with the lightest and work my way to the darkest, because the lightest is going to have the biggest presence on the page. So I am going to put this down, and again, I don't want that to line up like that, and I also don't want to have an edge, so I will be making random circles on here. Let me get the fuzz out of my makeup brush that I am using for the pinks. This is the Victorian Velvet, and I got these brushes, I believe the set with the black handles I got from Dollar Tree. And then I have this set that has the rose gold handles at Five Below. And I really, really like them for a lot of different applications, but not all applications. So you will have to use what you know works well for what you want to do. I'm trying to think. There are some things that they're not real good on. I think that sometimes intricate patterns they have a little trouble with, especially if you are wanting to use different colors. Say you have the stencil here like this, and you can see I've used different colors on that, and I have really skinny ones. Can you see how skinny that is? And I can use that for fine detailing, but I don't really like to because it's just rather hard. And for that, I prefer to use, this is a Wet n Wild eyeshadow brush, and it has a little bit more control. And I like to use that in those little tight design spots. Okay, so there is that stencil, and I am done with it. And I had to hurry up and clean these stencils just before I hit the record button because I forgot to. And there were other colors all over them. And that would not have been good. Now, since I am going from light to dark on my pinks, I really don't have to change out my brush between the colors. If you wish to, you can. That is entirely up to you. All right, so let's move on to the worn lipstick and the next biggest set of dots. And again, I'm trying to go against the grain, I guess. It's not against the grain, but I don't want it to be lined up perfectly with the edge of the page. That's not the look I am going for. And I only have to stencil over about this far because that pocket comes over as well. But I do want to make sure that I have myself covered over here. So I'll go ahead and stencil those. And then I'll move to the other side so that I get a different variation on the intensity of the color as I use the brush. And I don't have all the dark in one spot and all the light in another spot. I like for them to play off of each other. I think it gives a little bit more movement for your eyes to follow when they're looking at the page. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that one. And this one because it's on top of another level of the circles. Ooh, I like that. And that was the worn lipstick. Now we'll go to the aged mahogany. Let's see which one's darker. I put the labels on there and they actually have about the same intensity. That one's actually brighter, so I'll do that one last. And sometimes you just have to do that. You just have to play around a little bit. Since this is going to be glued closed, I can test, yes, if I really like that color or not. And so I'm going to put my next smallest set of dots on the page and just start in again, starting over here at this edge so I can make sure that I've got the spots covered where the oh my goodness, what words am I looking for? So that I have it covered where the pocket edge will be. So it doesn't look like they just abruptly end. It looks like they go ahead and travel on into the pocket. Now I'm going to use a little lighter hand on some of these dots. Because this color is a little darker, it just naturally is a little bit more eye-catching. So let's see how that looks. That looks good. I am going to throw a little bit of this same dot pattern down here because the way that I had it on the page, my stencil didn't quite reach all the way down here, and I did not want to just leave that off like that. So there, that looks good. I like that. And last, we're going to do the candied apple with these teeny tiny little dots. And this is going to just be a hit and miss on the dots, okay? Like I'm going to do a few here and a few here. And lift, and then a few here, and a few here, and lift, and a few right here, and then a couple down here. Once again, to look like they disappear into the pocket. There we go, I like that. So this may not be your cup of tea, but I really do like to layer my stencils. And I think that that will actually make a very good background page, because I could glue some writing paper on there. I could put a pocket on there, and I think it'll look really nice in the journal. So there's that one, and I'll go ahead and fold it. And I'm happy with that one. Now I will leave it open so that that ink can cure without being bothered. And then I have this other page. This one had the lace, and I tore off the top, and I folded the leftover to make a pocket on the back side, but I have this white page here. So I am going to pull out my Damask Stencil. If I can get it out of the package. And this one I will line up, because I do not want this one to look random. I feel like it needs to be aligned. But I think I'm going to go with the gathered twigs, because I think that that will pick up on this brown a little better. And gathered twigs has kind of a browny greeny mix feeling. And so I'm going to, whoops, I should probably use my washi tape again. And actually I'm going to bump this down just a little bit, because this line right here, if I tuck it right under there, it lines up perfectly and looks like it's coming out. I just need to make sure that I don't go all the way to the top here, because I'll have that cut off. And that is not what I want. So let's get this taped down right there and right there. Now let's try this. And this is one of the intricate ones, and you'll see I will not get probably a very clear imprint, but I don't really want to have super defined edges. I want it to be a little more not rustic, but more faded looking. And for that, this works well. If you're wanting the details to show through, you probably need to use a different brush. And here. All right. And so that's the first set. I'm going to take this stencil . Yes, that looks very old, and that was the look I was going for. All right, so I will just do it this way. I will line up that last damask piece on there. That way I know that I am still in my rows here. I think that's a little crooked on the bottom. A lot crooked now because I moved my whole paper. All right, I like that. I think that turned out well. And so we'll put this over here with our other papers to cure. Now, I want to look at some stamping because I have, let's see what papers I have that are stampable. Those are still drying. All right, let's look through here. I have these stamps that I would like to use. And I know that I can also use them on cards, so I'm not going to be too concerned if I do not use them all, or if I do not use them all on a page or whatever. So I want to use this though, because I think that this fits that whole time period, because this book was written in 1906, or the last, it wasn't written in 1906. The last copyright was in 1906. But I do want this to be on a lighter page so that you can see the details in it. So I think I'm going to go with my wine dyed paper, because it's fairly light and doesn't have a whole lot of busyness going on. And this stamp is called Belle Boutique True Flamenco, and it's from Tonic Studios. Let's see. And I have not used this stamp. Look at that bright, clean orange that it will no longer have here in just a few minutes. Now, I've heard a lot of people say to put it on your arms and stuff, and that works, I think, but I use it, I just put it on my desk because I know that it's not going to be perfectly spotless clean without oils and such as well. So what color do I want to stamp this lovely lady in? I think that I am going to stamp her in the aged mahogany, because I think it will set off well against the wine dyed paper. Which side do I want to put her on? Let's see. I think that right there would be perfect. And actually, I don't think I'm going to stamp all the way on the page. I kind of like when it hangs off just a little bit. Yep. So let me get my stamping off pages. One of them, I seem to have collected several. And remember to take the ink pad to your stamp, because I was told to do it. I've discovered it works well. So, and this is the very first time using this stamp, so it is a little resistant to the ink. And so I am going to stamp it off a couple of times on this page just to see if I can get it to work completely. So let's see. It's actually not too bad. Ooh, I may even use that page in the journal. Who knows? But I am going to do it a couple of more times just to make sure. I'm going to scoot some stuff, and I'm going to try it on the desk because I think that this padded foam core is affecting the print. Yes, that's a much better stamp. So that is the problem. All right, so I'm going to stamp this up. And I'm going to move my page over here. You won't be able to see it, but you'll see the difference it makes whenever I bring it back over for you to see. And I think that looks nice. So we'll let her cure as well. Let's see. Oh, I was going to use some of these stamps as well. So let's look and see what pages we have where we could add those stamps. This is a 2-layered stamp where you use the lighter color for the base, and then this is the darker, and it gives you a depth effect. Let's see. I think I'll use this one. I will be using this one in my daughter's wedding journal. And I'm going to grab a clipboard so that I don't have to keep going off. That way you can see the actual stencil, or not stencil, stamping happening. So for this one, I am going to do something a little different. I am going to stamp with my pumice stone, Tim Holtz pumice stone ink, Distress Oxide ink. It's a very, very light gray. Because I want to try a little something different. And here is going to be my test stamp because I haven't used this stamp before either. Let's see. Yes, and it's very light gray, but that's what I want. If you look, you can just barely see it, and I just want to barely see it because I'm going to do a little watercoloring and splattering with this one. I'm going to put it right down here. Yes, and you can see it in the gray right there, but you will not see it very well after I do what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a little puddle over to the side with some of my distress inks, and I'm going to use my water brush. Oh, that's a big puddle. That is not what I wanted. I just wanted a little bit. Oh well. Of course I go overboard, you know. And I'm going to use the Distress Oxides to paint in my rose. And then when I'm done painting in the rose and it is dry, I can come back with my soot, my black soot, and stamp it over again, and that just has a really pretty effect. And so I will not make you watch all of this. Actually, I'll just speed it up so you can watch all of it if you want, and if you want to slow it down, by all means do so. Okay, so now I'm going to let that dry. And when it is dry, I am going to take my black soot and load up the ink pad. The other colors that I used in this particular little flower arrangement, I used the candied apple you saw, I used the bundled sage, and I used the wild honey. And one of the things that I really, really enjoy about the Distress Oxides is you can use them like a watercolor, but after the first layer dries, you can come back in and add a little bit more color and give it these different depths and shadings and such. The another recommendation that I have is when you are painting your leaves, and actually when you're painting anything, go a little outside the lines. It'll look just a little messy and just a little more interesting when you go to overstamp it, because this will define the lines, and then you'll have those splashes of color behind, and it'll just be so much more interesting. I've got to figure out what to do with this whole big splotch of candied apple. I may be doing a lot more painting here in just a bit. So I'm going to take this over here and make sure that it's dry. All right, now it is dry. And I'm going to take my stamp and ink it with the black soot. And I'm actually not even going to try to make sure that I get really good coverage on the black soot, because I think that there is still enough definition. Some of the gray pumice is still showing, and then you have the outlines of the flowers that you just painted. And the page is a little wrinkled, so I'm not going to expect perfection. My head is probably going to get in here. I will try my hardest to not let that happen. I need to line this up. Press, making sure you got good contact, and there you go. And I just really, really like that effect. I think it's very pretty. It does bleed through on the back sometimes, but that is easily covered up. I'll set that aside to dry. And now we have, let's go with this paper. This is a coffee dyed paper, and I'm not even sure where this paper came from because it was this length when I got it. But now I think I know what I'm going to do with this big bunch of red ink. Move stuff out of the way because my desk just seems to get piles and piles and piles. And I'm going to spray right into that red with my little fine mist bottle. And I've got my splatter brush. And I have yet to figure out how to do this without getting it on everything. I am getting better, but it still gets a little bit of everything going on. All right, so first I am going to do this layer with splatters. And that'll dry really quick because this, I think this might be newsprint paper. And so I think that it just absorbs and dries really fast. And look, it went through really quickly. So I'm going to put some more on the back so that it looks like I did that on purpose. We all know I didn't, but there is that. And now I am going to take one of my other stamps Let's see, which stamp do I want to try this with? I think I'll do this edging stamp here. kind of a lace looking thing, but it's going to be a loose lace. Oh my goodness, a loose lace thing, if that's the right way to put it. As a matter of fact, it's really going to be loose because I am not sure what I did with my longer, wider acrylic block. So I'm going to take this edge right here and I'm going to plop my stamp into the wet paint that's over here, the wet ink, and I am just going to stamp with that. It's not going to be really distinct image, but you are going to get the hint of what it is. And I think that that's kind of fun. And I think I may even do a second layer closer to the edge because I'm going to make this a fold over, I believe. So let's just go right here, stamp, and go right here and stamp. And I believe that I am going to get a little bit of black soot just to define that particular part. I'm not going to be able to use any more of that because it's actually getting a little overdone. And my spray bottle. And we're going to do some more splotching. And these are really fine because of the way that this brush is going. It's really kind of weird. I don't know why this brush did this. It's supposed to be a fan brush, but then the first time that I used it, it just started doing things that I didn't want it to do. So it may be on its way out the door because this is about the only thing it's good for anymore, and it doesn't even do that very well. So we'll turn this over, add a few to the back. And I really thought that this stamping on that edge would bleed through, and it did not at all. All right, so I am done with that. And I'll set that to the side to cure as well. Okay, so now we are to the splatters. And I have not really done much with my splatter sprays and different things thus far because I have trouble controlling the overspray. So I found this box, and it is actually the perfect size. It sits right on my, whoops, I just unstacked everything. It sits right on my desk, just like this. And it catches the overspray very well. Now, I did some practice sheets because, like I said, I haven't worked on it very much. And here is the first one. And you can see some of my stamping offs in there. But the brown is Vintage Photo Spray Stain. And the goldish color is Smooch Spritz. And it is, I don't have any clue who the manufacturer is. I know that I got this at Tuesday morning a long time ago. It says ClearSnap, www.clearsnap.com. So that is a sparkly spritz. I don't know if I can pick it up, but it's got a little glimmer, got shimmer, got sheen. And I practiced my first sprays on this, and let me tell you, that Tim Holtz stuff is hard to control right off the bat. You need to practice some. Now, sometimes I wouldn't mind having these big splatters like that, but I was trying to get a little bit more control over the whole situation. So I tried a second sheet from a little further away and a little different angle. Instead of going straight down into the box, I had the box turned this way. And I had my paper right there like that. And I still got some more splotches, but I got a little bit more of a fine mist as well. Still a little more splotchy than what I was going for. I think that that was 2 squirts of each of those sprays, and it covered the whole page. I really, really wanted to get a finer covering though. So I turned my box this way on the long side. And this is 1 spray of the vintage photo spray stain, and 2 sprays of the let's see, what was it called? Candle Glow Smooch Spritz. And I think I've got the hang of it. And I can still use these papers. I can cut them up and use them in other projects. But I just wanted to tell you that you will want to practice. Don't just go boom thinking I can do this, because you may not like the results at first. You may love the results, who knows? So I am going to put this piece of coffee dyed paper in here, and I am going to attempt a little bit of spray and try not to get too heavy-handed, but it's really, really hard with this. And I found that if I kind of aim up, let's see, if I was perpendicular, I would be kind of like that. So, and so it goes up and into the box. See, that was 1 spray, and that actually helped me with my control over the spray. And so I'm going to do another one and another one. And I kind of like that. Here is what I ended up with on that. I do like that. All right, so now I'm going to turn it upside down. Am I going to turn it upside down? I'm going to turn it over. I'll just leave the vintage photo on this side, and then I will do the candle glow on the other side. Let's see. I'm going to do about the same thing. Just shake it first, I forgot. And this one actually had a finer mist from the get-go, so it's a little easier to control. And you saw me do 3 sprays there. And this is the coverage that I got. Now, also, keep in mind, this paper was coffee dyed to begin with, so it already had an undercoating of color, and that changes it just a little bit from the stark white paper, but I like that. I think that's going to add a lot to the journal, so I'm going to set that aside to dry. And let's see. I wanted to add just a little bit of the candle glow to this one, but not much, just a fine little splatter. And I'm not going to do the vintage photo on this one. You see just those 2 little spots there that got it, but it adds a lot of texture to that paper. So I have covered stencils and some stamps and some splatters and some sprays. I still have a few papers to decide what I'm going to do on them in the journal. I'm pretty sure I'm going to use them. I may not use them. We'll see when the time comes. So here are the sprayed papers. Here are the splatter. Let's see. Here's the splatter paper. Right here, and I have already folded it over so that I could know what I was doing when I put it into the journal. That's going to be a little flip out for writing space. So this is the splatter page. spray and splatter stamps. Here is one of the stamps that we worked on, and this was the lady. Simple, straightforward. Here is one of the stamps that we used, and we used the Distress Oxides, kind of like a watercolor, to create that beautiful little corner there. And here is one of the stencils we created. And here's another one of the stencils. Remember, that's not going to be showing. It's going to be folded over like that. And we used a stencil here, mostly covering up that background, or mostly covering up the stencil with that base collage piece, but enough of it is showing. And here's some stenciling that we did behind a torn piece of paper. And I believe that is it for this particular video. I hope that you enjoyed creating with me today. I hope maybe that you learned something, and I hope maybe you have something you can teach me how to do. If you do have ideas or suggestions or questions, please ask in the comments or look at any of my information listed down below and contact me that way. I would be so happy to answer questions. And as always, I want to remind you to be kind. Bye.